Today we're going to be diving into the best potential base yield farms that we can find. So first thing we're going to want to do is go over to DeFi Llama right here. This is just one of the many awesome tools that we use. Go over, scroll down to hit yields on the left, then go to pools, and then here under chain, we're going to go ahead and clear all, and then we're going to select base, of course, because that's what this video is all about. So if we want, we can look into pools that include specific assets. So for example, we can type in the search bar Bitcoin, and we can find pools that include specific assets such as Bitcoin or other coins like Ethereum. Here we can look for pools that have Ethereum, but for now I'm not going to have any tokens in the filter. And according to DeFi Llama, there's 670 pools on the base network. That's a lot of pools to have to go through. So to be able to filter through, we're going to turn on some of these filters. So one of the things we can do is go ahead and set a minimum and maximum APY. Now I highly recommend that you don't go too aggressive with the APY setting and put something high like 120% APY per year, because even though we want to do 10% per month, we want to have some blue chip exposure, and we don't always just want to have positions that are doing at the bare minimum 10% per month. Because as you can see, now that we have the 120 APY a minimum filter on, we're targeting stuff like OVN USD, OVN USD plus, and then ETH to Clima and stuff like Bava to Arrow. I don't really see Ethereum to USDC here. So it could be good to have a portion of your portfolio in stuff that's doing under 10% a month, and then another portion in stuff that's doing over 10% a month. And this would all be to balance out to about 10% per month. So what I'm personally going to do for this video is set the APY at about 50%. Here we go. And now we have 163 pools to look through, so it's a bit better. And what I can do here is do a minimum TVL of 500,000. Here we go, apply filter. And now we're narrowed down to about 35 pools. And now a ton of them are over on Aerodrome. Looks like a majority of them. And some of them are on Extra Finance, Beefy, etc. However, you will notice that as we start to dive into platforms like Extra Finance or Beefy, these platforms are aggregators. And they're aggregators for sites like Aerodrome, which means that we're most definitely going to want to pull up the Aerodrome website instead of looking at Beefy or Extra Finance. So this is where a lot of the pools are, it seems. So I'm going to head over to the liquidity section. You can see a ton of pools right here. And under the liquidity pool section, you'll notice we have active, stable, volatile, concentrated, incentivized, and more. So stable and volatile, this is Aerodrome V1. As you can see, many of these pools over here on DeFi Llama are showing up on Aerodrome V1. These are full range liquidity pools and they're not concentrated. And if you'd want to concentrate them, you'd have to go over to concentrated over on Aerodrome. And if we are going to use concentrated over on Aerodrome, that is where we'd want to dive into Metrics Finance. So we'd go over to the Discover tab on Metrics Finance and click Aerodrome on the base network. Once again, this is available on the free version of Metrics Finance, but there are some features on the paid version that are really helpful, such as narrowing down your pools using filters, etc. And of course, by you watching this channel, you can go in the description down below, click the link to claim a free 30 days of the Metrics Finance Pro version. But the good thing is there aren't a ton of concentrated liquidity pools over on Aerodrome, because if you look over on the right, it shows us only 60 pools that we'd have to sort through. So you don't technically need to use a ton of filters to sort through a ton of pools. Anyways, we're going to get back to that soon, but I want to go back to DeFi Llama and take a look at some of these pools. So first we have USDC to Arrow. Now this is the actual Arrow token. So if you want to provide liquidity for it, you could go ahead and open it in a new tab and find out more information about this pool. I personally don't want to provide liquidity for it because I feel like a lot of people sell their Arrow token incentives for cash or for USDC or for other assets, right? So it wouldn't really make sense for me to contradict my analysis and hop in this pool. But I do like OVN and USD Plus over here. If you don't know, these assets are part of the same ecosystem, Overnight Finance. And let's go ahead and open that one up right over here. Okay. And the thing I'm going to pay attention to is this consistency with the APY. So you'll notice the APY ever since about July 2024, the APY has been relatively consistent. Yes, it did go up here in July, but ever since around here, it's been relatively consistent, as you can see. And not to mention, its TVL has been climbing. Look at this. And it currently sits at about $50 million. So this is definitely a solid one that I would personally want to look into including in my portfolio, or at least do some further due diligence into. So now that we know we could possibly do OVN to USD Plus, we could head over to Beefy Finance and we'll go ahead and launch the app right here. So we can go ahead and search for OVN and find that OVN to USD Plus position right here. It says it's doing an APY of 312% according to Beefy. But remember, this is auto compounding over here. So now we can go ahead and go over to CoinGecko and take a look at the OVN token on its own and see how it is doing. So over the past month, it is green. It is up a bit. It had a big climb and then went back down. Over the past year, it is still up. It had a huge rise in April and now it is back down a bit. But all in all, it seems like over the past 3 months, it's done pretty well. So I could either run this over on Beefy Finance, where it would auto compound my rewards for me, or I can go over to Aerodrome Finance and find the position over on the volatile section. Here we go. Here's the OVN to USD plus. Keep in mind, this is a full range position, so we wouldn't have to do rebalances. So it looks like this one would be getting roughly 150% APR according to Aerodrome, and I would have to take those arrow tokens and manually sell them and do that. But if I wanted to, I could go over to vfat.io, load it up, and I could actually set up an automation to do that for me. So I could go ahead and search for OVN to USD plus. Here we have it right here, saying 156, 157% APR. So if we were to deploy into it over on VFAT, we could do auto harvesting, and we could auto harvest that and have it convert into USDC instantaneously, basically whenever it's harvested. So that is one huge benefit of doing this over on VFAT. So now that we've talked about finding those full range liquidity pools over on Aerodrome, I'm going to talk about finding the concentrated liquidity pools over on Aerodrome. So we're not going to be using any filters. I'm just going to show you how you can use Metrics Finance and the free version in specific to help you find these pools. And you'll see there's some pools like Coinbase Bitcoin to Ethereum, and this is if you want to pair Bitcoin with Ethereum basically. So if we dive into the simulate page for this pool, this is basically where we're going to see a lot more data about the pool. So we can go ahead and type in here our deposit amount. Well, let's just say it's $10,000. And then from here, we can start to find our concentrated liquidity range. So we can tighten up the max price, tighten up the min price. And if we wanted to do a range like this, we'd get an APR of about 7%. Now that's not really good for Bitcoin to Ethereum in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and scratch that pool off my list and go back. So let's go to base, Aerodrome. Okay, here we go. But I'm just going to go down this list and keep looking for liquidity pools that I'd want to potentially include in my portfolio. So first of all, this pool that I found, Ethereum to USDC, let's go ahead and set our deposit amount to a potential $10,000. And as you can see off the bat, the yearly APR percent is much higher than the other pool we were looking at. And now if we were to adjust our range, so say we want to make the max price around 2,700 and then the min price around 2,056, we're looking at APR of about 98%. But say we're thinking Ethereum is going to do pretty well coming up, we could add some more upside exposure. So we could do like 3,100 and then tighten this up on the bottom, cut up those bottoms, and we'd be getting about 81% or 82% yearly APR. But if we really did want to try to get to 100% APR, we would potentially have to go down on our max price, limit it down to about here, and then see we're at 120% yearly APR. And it's not always the best idea to provide liquidity on this tight of a range. It just depends. But right now, depending on how the market is moving, there might be a lot of divergence loss. So it could be a better idea to be on Uniswap, get like a 65% APR, and have a much broader range. So we can go ahead and dive into Arrow to Ethereum as well right here. Once again, I'm going to set that deposit amount to about $10,000. And since these assets are closely correlated, at least to an extent, they have a 75% correlation. It means I can go with a tighter range, because that would mean that supposedly when one goes up, the other one would go up with it. And as opposed to something like Ethereum to USDC, when Ethereum goes up, that doesn't mean USDC is going up. Now, as you can see, the price on this pool is going down, and it's going down all the way. And now typically most people might think by first looking at this is that it's bad for the pool. Well, this just actually means that Arrow is outperforming Ethereum, as it's taking less Arrow to equal 1 Ethereum. And that's exactly what this chart right here represents. Now, as far as my range goes, if I had time to manage this, I'd probably do something like 25.80 as my max price, and then about 16.63 as my min price, and that I'd be sitting at about 40% APR. And that would give me about 52% Ethereum and 48% Arrow about. And if you're a bit more bullish on Arrow, you can be more bullish on Arrow, and you can just drag the max price down more, and you can take on more Arrow exposure compared to Ethereum. Now, once again, this is a pretty tight range, and it would require a good amount of management, so I would recommend using a tool like Aperture or VFAT. And this would be to do the automations on your position. But remember, oftentimes when you're using automations like VFAT or Aperture, you could end up locking a bunch of divergence loss in. But also, if you're automating often, then you're gonna have to pay a lot of fees, especially to Aperture. And those fees are just gonna constantly eat up your position. And keep in mind that both those platforms do charge fees. So what I would aim to look for over on Aerodrome is something that is doing a solid APR, and something we can go with a pretty tight range on because it's pretty closely correlated, but also something that's going to pay out a pretty solid return. So looking over here, we have Brett to Ethereum. I'm going to set the deposit amount to $10,000. And then if we just tighten up our range over here, maybe we put the max price to about this and the min price over here, we're already getting 87% yearly APR, it says. So this could definitely be one of those positions that gets us closer to that 10% per month goal. So this is one that I'd probably want to include in my portfolio along with this OVN to USD plus one. But not in this pool, I'm not saying I necessarily enter this on Beefy platform, but over on Aerodrome instead. And then look, we have spec to Ethereum. Now this isn't actually an Aerodrome position, it's over on Uniswap. But if we scroll down and look, you can already see the yearly APR set at 122%. What is that? That's crazy. So if we scroll down, we can see the yearly APR is already set at 122%. Now you may have to change some settings here. The current price is a bit off, so that could be changing things. So now it looks like when I get the current price to where the liquidity is, it is at 72% APR. But if we go ahead and tighten up our range right here, make this a bit lower, where you would have to adjust your portfolio a bit probably, you can get a 92% APR it's saying. So that is great. If this video helped you in any way, make sure to subscribe down below, click the bell to turn on post notifications because I really am trying to stay active for you guys. Anyways, take care.